Maybe you know that Japan has the largest percent of old people in the world. It's the fastest aging advanced country in the world. But if it's okay with everyone, I will stand and talk rather than sit down. I feel more comfortable. Now, my name is T.J.Cogan. I come from the United States, but I've been living in Japan for a very long time, and I teach at Waseda University. Now, this semester, I'll be in charge of 2 classes. The first is Western Images of Japan. 2 weeks ago, when I was in Japan, getting ready to come to Venice, I read in the newspaper an article that was very shocking for Japan. Very shocking for Japan. Japan dropped from the 2nd largest economic power to the 3rd largest economic power. So since 1969 until January of this year, Japan was the 2nd largest economic power in the world. Well, for the Japanese, this was a big shock. They dropped to number 3, and China, of course, became number 2. Well, the Japanese have been a focus of my interest for many, many years, and Japan still is an interesting and important country, even though it's number 3 now. This semester, in the first course, Western Images of Japan, we're going to look at how Westerners, mainly British and Americans, have looked at Japan over the last 500 years. Now, of course, in one semester, twice a week, we can't do it in great depth, but I'm going to try to bring out the highlights. So we'll start from the very beginning in the middle of the 16th century, when the Jesuit priests came to Japan, and they left some very, very interesting documentaries and reports about Japan. So we'll start with that and come up to the present day. Now, there are 2 ways to look at this, through the written record and through the visual record. The written record is so immense we can only read certain things, and I prepared a course pack for you of what I think are the interesting things that you should read. Now, that'll be for the first, maybe the first 8 weeks. And then the last third of the course will be the visual record. We'll look at some movies that deal with Japan. As you know, Hollywood uses Japan for the theme of some important movies. You can think of The Last Samurai, Kill Bill, Volume 1. Those kind of movies deal with Japan. So we'll watch the movies, we will discuss the movies, we will analyze 4 movies. So in that course, we will look at how Westerners have understood and misunderstood Japan. So that'll be the first course. That's early in the morning, and that'll be a change for me, because in Japan, as you might know, many people have to commute a long way to the university, and I always arrange for afternoon classes. So my lifestyle has to change, but I'll be here on time, and I hope if you take the course, you will too. Now, the second course is a little bit unusual, a cultural history of tea. A cultural history of tea. The year 1615 probably doesn't mean too much to most people. And it didn't mean much to me until I read a book a couple weeks ago about coffee. About coffee. Did you know that coffee came into Europe in the year 1615 for the first time from Arabia? And where did it enter Europe? Well, right here in Venice. So this is the home of coffee for Europe. And as you walk around Venice, of course, you see all these coffee shops, all these restaurants that serve all kinds of delicious coffee, and you know that coffee is king. Coffee is king. But in many parts of the world, it is not. Japan is a good example, China is a good example, Korea is a good example, Vietnam is a good example. So in this cultural history of tea, we're going to look at tea from various aspects. First, I'll talk about tea. What is it? You think of many people, particularly Americans, think of Lipton tea bags. Lipton tea bags. Well, actually, most tea bags are made from tea dust. Please listen, tea dust. Which is not, of course, the best tea. I'm going to explain the history of tea, the contents of tea, the health benefits of tea in the first few weeks. This is maybe a little bit dry, but it's probably pretty useful. You'll see why tea is drunk by many people around the world for many reasons. Now, the Japanese live the longest in the world. They have the longest longevity of any group in the world, somewhere around 87 for women, 84 for men. Is it connected with tea? Is it connected with tea? You cannot say no. You cannot say no.
The Italians are just a little below, and they rely on a different source
Okay, we can discuss that at the first week of class. In any case, longevity is connected with the food culture and also the beverage culture. And so in East Asia, particularly Japan, Korea, and China, tea is king. Tea is king. And it's not just a beverage. If you read the syllabus preparation, you'll notice that it's not just a beverage. It's not just a beverage. It's a cultural phenomenon. For us, it seems strange. Really, a cultural phenomenon? Yes. In this course, I'll deal with Japan in particular because I know a lot about Japan, and I've been there a long time. It's a cultural phenomenon. It's affected many parts of the culture, not just the food culture. It's affected gardens. It's affected philosophy. It's affected manners. It's affected clothes. It's affected ceramics. It's affected almost everything, particularly from the beginning of the 17th century, when this tea boom began. Now, there's a tea ceremony in Japan. You might have heard about the tea ceremony. This is a typical Japanese art form, and it's connected with many aspects of Japanese aesthetics, Japanese life, Japanese culture, Japanese history, and we're going to talk a lot about that. Now, if it's just theory, you're probably bored. So what I did was I brought some tea things with me. So this semester, we're going to try a few things. Of course, we'll study the history. We'll study the background. Also, we'll study about the appreciation of tea. And then, this might be the highlight, there will be some demonstrations. Now, I've studied Chinese tea in Hong Kong, so I have a little bit of knowledge about Chinese tea. And if the class is not too big and not too thirsty, I can probably provide a tea service, Chinese tea service, for the students somewhere along towards the end of the semester. That's one thing. But the better highlight, the more important highlight is, there will be a Japanese tea ceremony. Now you say, can you really do that? No, I cannot. But I brought a real, live, official, talented, licensed, experienced, beautiful tea teacher with me, who just happens to be my wife. So, towards the end of the semester, my wife will bring her tea things with her. Actually, she's sitting up in my room now worrying about the presentation. She will bring her tea things with her, and we will have a tea ceremony. I will explain the meaning of it, and she will explain the tea part, and you will have a chance to drink some very, very good tea. I was really worried until 2 days ago about this because I sent some boxes from Japan through the Japanese mail system and the Italian mail system. The Italian mail system. Well, the Japanese said there'll be no problem. Just pay your $200 US per box for airmail, okay, and then they'll send it to Venice, and then in Venice they will bring it to your house. Well, not quite so simple. They did come to my house, but my wife had to be there every day for 5 days, because if they cannot deliver it that day, apparently it's taken somewhere far away, and then you have to go pick it up, and becomes much of a problem. So we have our tea things. So if you've never tried Japanese tea and you want to see this very experienced, beautiful, talented tea teacher, you might want to join the class. So these two classes are much different from some of the other classes. They don't deal with sustainability or the environment. They're much simpler kinds of topics, but perhaps it'll be a change of pace, a kind of tea break for you. Thank you.